Hey, it's Mike with Beyond Aesthetics, and welcome to the nutrition series. We're first going to discuss what is a calorie. We'll talk about calorie counting and energy balance. So, despite what you may hear in popular circles that maybe sugar is the devil and weight loss is based on hormones or your gut microbiome or what have you, at the end of the day, calories are the de facto king when it comes to weight management. So, did you track calories before and didn't lose any weight? Well, simply you just weren't in an actual deficit based on your energy needs. And, do you struggle to gain weight and put on appreciable mass? Well, then you simply just aren't in a calorie surplus. It all comes back to the law of thermodynamics, in that matter cannot be created or destroyed. It has to come from somewhere. And so we are able to calculate the amount of energy that we consume through the use of calories. So what is a calorie? Well, a calorie is simply just a unit of measure, okay? It's not something tangible, it's not something you eat. It's the unit of measure for energy in the food that we eat. And when we're talking about weight management, we have to look at the net energy balance. So the calories in and the calories out. Now, calories in is quite simple. We add up the calories from the foods and the drinks that we consume. And all foods are comprised of macronutrients, so proteins, fats, carbohydrates, which we're going to discuss in the next video. But calories out is much more complicated. It's incredibly impractical to measure the calories burned. It's variable to the individual, the type of activity that you're performing, and the person's metabolism in a myriad of different nuance. But even with all the fancy smart devices and the wearables, those calculated numbers, according to some studies, are 20 to 80% inaccurate. So, while it's nice to have them, we can't exactly trust them to calculate calories burned. So calories out is comprised of your RMR, which is your resting metabolic rate, the exercise activity, the non-exercise activity, and the thermic effect of food. And so we'll dive into all those on the next slide. So defining the calories out, we look at what we call total daily energy expenditure. Now, how do we make sure that you're losing weight? Well, we'll start with a reasonable estimate of the calories burned, and then we focus on what we can control. So your RMR, well, this is just the metabolic rate for the calories you need to keep the lights on. This is your organ function, brain function, and all the different physiological processes that happen throughout the day. You don't control any of this. Now, we can affect this, though, through body composition. So you've probably heard that increased muscle mass has a higher caloric burn than, say, the same amount of weight in fat mass. And then we have the non-exercise activity. So this is everything from fidgeting to walking. So this is the voluntary activity that you do each day. Now we can increase these by creating a daily step requirement and increasing that incrementally. Or if you're somebody that fidgets a lot, talks with their hands, that's all energy being consumed. And then you have the exercise activity. These are the calories burned from working out in the gym or doing cardiovascular activity. But people often overestimate how many calories are being burned in these activities. I mean, we can't affect how many calories you're going to burn doing this, but you'll likely average somewhere between 90 to 300 calories. This is not one of the biggest bulks of your energy consumption. So if you look at the graph, these are not exactly to scale, but are pretty representative of how many calories of your daily expenditure that each of these activities is going to utilize. So then finally you have the thermic effect of food, and really that's just how many calories are being used, the amount of energy it takes to break down the food that you eat. So not every calorie, not every macronutrient is the same. Not every type of food is the same. It's pretty variable here, and we'll dive into those in a future lesson. Now, I won't lie. Very few people actually enjoy counting calories, as it can be a pretty tedious task, at least at first. But don't worry, we're not going to be doing this forever. My objective is to make you aware of how foods affect you. So in a few short weeks, you'll become incredibly aware of things like energy density. That is to say, how many calories are actually in the food that you eat. And you'll also become a little more cognizant of what you consume. So which should create that kind of aha moment to push you closer to achieving your goals, because you'll recognize how the foods that you commonly ate maybe didn't realize how many calories were in those foods. And in doing so, you're going to develop a keen intuition of food composition. So over time, this is going to be an incredibly valuable say, for example, when you aren't able to track, if you're at a restaurant or at a social event, you've tracked enough foods that you can kind of see, look at a food and understand this apple is 100 grams and it has this amount of calories, or this 3-ounce chicken has X amount of protein and fats. So you'll be able to eat pretty much more intuitively as you hone this skill, and more or less maintain your ideal physique without being a slave to the food scale or the calorie tracking app. So in the next lesson, we're going to discuss macronutrients and kind of the nutrition program hierarchy. And this is going to provide valuable guidance in the understanding of the purpose of your meal plan structure and how to best adhere to the program each and every day.